Hey, my name is Andy Manus. My colleagues and I are going to be talking today about the grading system and how it's unfair based on the use of zeros. Let's take a look at a few things that we have here. We're going to talk about the case against zeros and what effect does having a zero have on a student's grade. First of all, we've got to think about what is the purpose of grading. Is it to show what the student has actually learned, or are we using it as a punitive means to punish a student for maybe what they didn't turn in? Let's take a look at this. It says, what effect does including a zero have on a student's grade? If you see here, this student's doing really well in class, but for some reason didn't turn in a grade. When you average all those in, he gets a C. If you take out that zero and average in a 62 instead, being the lower part of the grading scale, you'll see that the average is a 90.4, which is a very high B. Now, which one do you think more accurately reflects the actual student learning? Clearly, it's when you round in or average in to 62. Now, somebody else is going to come up here and talk a little bit more about this. But let's think about what we want to accomplish when we're grading. Do we want to encourage the student to keep working, to show what he actually knows, or do we want to punish him for making a mistake?
Hi, I'm Todd Henderson. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about alternatives for zero. Zeros, obviously, are a stain on our fabric of the educational system, just like the stain on my shirt. It's something that you focus on and will ruin the picture. So we know that zeros are going to increase dropouts. We know that they're going to lower self-esteem and it's going to decrease student motivation, which is nothing that teachers want to be a part of. So why do we give zeros? Well, teachers give zeros sometimes to say that this needs to reflect the real world, because if we don't do our work, we get fired. Teachers want to teach responsibility, and that's part of the hidden curriculum in education. But teaching responsibility, there's other ways, better ways, that don't hurt students. And sometimes teachers believe that they're setting high expectations. So if we can't give zeros, or if we're going to, in our staff development, teach you that zeros are not acceptable to use in your grading book, then what do we use? What's the alternative? That would be the power of the I, incompletes. We want to give incompletes in our grade book to allow students to be held accountable for the work that we assign. If we felt that making the assessment was worthy enough, then we should grade every child's assignment so that we can accurately measure our learning targets for these children. So what does it mean to give an I? So instead of F's in your grade book, you're going to incorporate I's. The incomplete is going to be in the grade book until the child does the work. We hold the student responsible and they have to get the work completed. Now, some schools give 30 days, some teachers do it for the entire year. Those kinds of decisions will be made on the grade level, but during our training we're going to give site teams the opportunity to have conversations and make that decision. The critical component to giving I's is not just giving an I and leaving it and telling the kid you got to turn it in at some point, but the school must structure within its day opportunities for students to make up that work. What kind of opportunities? Well, you have Saturday school. You have after school. If your school is using a response to intervention model, then as part of the interventions that are set aside in the day, is when a student will make up their work. All those times are student times, not class time. We do not give class time because that is watering down the curriculum and we want to have rigor in our schools. By giving the I, you keep the students accountable. You set expectations that work must be completed and they cannot opt out with a zero. Many times we have students in our class who say, I'll take the zero. By giving them the incomplete, it forces them to do the work and then lets the teacher accurately assess student achievement. So what if I have more than one I in the grade book? Any student that has 2 or more I's, for the report card, they get an I on the report card with a small little asterisk that says, incomplete due to failure to turn in assignments. The power that this gives the teacher is that it puts the blame back on the student in the parent's eyes. No longer does the teacher become the bad person who gave the zero, but the parent looks at the student and says, why didn't you complete your work? Complete your work.
Okay, my name is Tommy Townsend. I'm going to talk a little bit about an example of what a topic-based grade book using the I to 4 format would look like and how it will work. Let's go to that board. If you can see at the top up here, we would have our learning targets listed along with our homework, or along with all of our assignments. Each assignment has a learning target base to it. Like quiz 1 has a date that is due. It has also with it the actual learning targets that are adjusted to it. Down here, we list all the topics those learning targets relate to. Over here, we have a student name, and we have, again, the list of A through O, or however many different assignments you're going to have for that student for that year, or for that quarter, or whatever. And then you're going to list those according to the grade they get, based on the 4-point, I to 4-point scale. Now, what this does, it gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility. If this student, for instance, Jarrell, got an incomplete because he did not turn in this particular assignment D, which shows that was homework due on September 11th. He didn't bring in a letterhead assignment. There's no way I can possibly, let's look at the rubric just a minute, switch to that if we can. Based on this rubric, he didn't get a 4 because I can't assess that he had complete and detailed understanding of what a letterhead actually looked like. But I go down to the very bottom down here, there is no information to assess student knowledge, understanding of the topic. So I had to give him the incomplete. Let's go back to the... Now, I know that from all these other assignments that he's doing, he's really pretty much close to a B student, high C, low B student. So his average would have been, if I had just graded it, a 1.6. That's not really reflective of his knowledge. So I had the latitude to up him just a little bit. I increased his average to a C here. But he's really a B student. But he knows now that if he comes in and brings that assignment into me, it will increase his average and he'll bounce back to a B or even better, depending on how well his assignment is. Over here, he didn't turn in another assignment. That is assignment 0. I can instantly look up and I can see that he didn't turn in another homework assignment. He got a problem with homework, like a lot of children do, on October 15th. And that was learning target 5.05, which hit in this particular area. And utilizing spreadsheet software, there's no way that I can assess whether he can do a graph properly or not. So I had to give him the actual average that it worked out, which is a high C. So under these circumstances, the teacher has a tremendous amount of flexibility to still adjust the student's grade while letting that student see what they have not done yet and trying to encourage that student to get that completed. One other thing this grading does is it lets you look at a glance, this type of grading system, and tell where that student is weak. You can see the actual learning targets that student is missing or falling behind on, which gives you the ability to go back and then work out some kind of a situation with that student where you can help them bring those grades back up and actually get that knowledge they need.
Hi, my name is Jeff Minton, and I'm basically going to recap what my colleagues and I are going to provide for this particular staff development and kind of review some of the concepts. Looking at the old grading scale does not reflect student performance. It's simply a grade that's given to fill out spots to achieve a report card grade. It's just a number. We need to move away from that. The grades need to reflect performance and not just a number. The old way, grading could be considered punitive, especially when using zeros. It didn't give a child an opportunity to make up work and show his or her proficiency. Remember, although these topics may seem somewhat different from what you've been doing, you are the giver of grades. As long as what the grade that you give is educationally defensible, it is considered acceptable. The new method utilizes the I to 4-point scale. The I gives the students an opportunity for students to make up work. It doesn't let them off the hook. And as the teacher, it makes them finish the work so that you can accurately assess them. The I to 4-point scale gives an accurate reflection of the performance, especially when it's coupled with the grading sheet that has been used that is linked to the individual learning targets. This particular method is not just something that we came up out of the air. This method is a tried and true method and is backed by researchers like Marzano and other prominent researchers. The winds of change are on the horizon. The time is now. So book now for this particular staff development.